Yes, I have a sense of humor. Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am your host, Willie Bragg. Today I would like to go and give a quick shout out to Snipe Hunter. Hello world, over here on YouTube, and to say hi to as well as to Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Glad to see you back here again, my friend. So I hope everybody's doing well. And of course, I have a sense of humor, as I said. I created this as a meme because I think this is going to be either in the year 2020, after the year 2025, I think you're going to see this happen. I think this was originally a Michelle Obama hugging on George W. Bush in 2018. I believe it was 2018. It was something like that. And then eventually was Michelle Obama and Donald Trump, because they predict something worse than Trump will come along. But I think it will be something as weird as, AOC and Donald Trump. And if you ever see something that looks like this happening, I want you to remember where you saw this whole concept first. I'm back. So anyway, I hope each and every one of you are doing well today, and I just wanted to do that. I want to say hi to Jamar, Connecticut. I think that's Jamar Jabari. I have so many thoughts on this; it's ridiculous. On both sides, was texting Tommy about it too. This definitely should have been a conversation to have in person. This definitely is an example of it. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's Jamar Jabari in Connecticut on the Rumble chat. And if that's you, Jamar, I hope you're doing well. I have to have the Rumble on a separate computer, so I can see the chats. Otherwise, I will accidentally ignore people on Rumble. I'm not going to ignore anybody on any of the other platforms. Here on the regular computer, my main computer, I'm getting Twitch and YouTube folks on the chat line. So I want to make sure I don't ignore any chat line around there is. So anyway, as I said, Today, I hope each and every one of you are doing well. What I want to discuss is the famous video by this past week by Jimmy Dore and Cornel West. I respect both men. I looked at Cornel West as somebody, who's way better than Bernie Sanders could ever be when it comes to policies, when it comes to having the integrity to run outside of the two-party system, because the two-party system is corrupt. It makes my life difficult, but I have to do this to have some semblance of integrity for myself. I don't like the lighting in the background. Give me a second here. Is that better? Gives me kind of a psychedelic look a little bit. I think I'm going to do that blue. Blue's better. I think that's a better look. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So Jimmy Dore had Cornel West on his show. They had a conversation about how to do the campaign. And for the most part, I'm going to say I agree with both gentlemen. There were areas where I think they both were a little bit off, because I'm my own person. I have my own perspective. I would say that maybe the only fault I may see in Cornel West, I'm giving a spoiler alert, is maybe he's still kind of hung up in a little bit on the two-party system game. Even a lot of third-party people, myself included, tend to view things through which party is actually a lesser evil. and I'm not going to make any apologies for it. I mean, I still feel that way. The Republicans are worse. Now, I'm not going to go into Kyle Kulinski logic and say, well, the Democrats are a trillion times better. You know that you need to call two priests when the hair dye basically possess a person's body like that. And I think that maybe Kyle bought some demonic hair dye that turned him not just only to dime store M&M, but just kind of destroy his outlook on what made him unique to begin with. He's lost that. And also I think that Crystal has lost her way. And I'm going to be talking about Turncoat Don. So what better way to start all this than to start with a video with regard to Turncoat Don in relation to what we're talking about, considering it's Cornell West versus Jimmy Dore, because both Crystal Ball and Kyle Kulinski got a lot to say about Cornell West and running for president. So this is Kyle Kulinski 3 years ago when he was decent. And I finally woke up on the fact that his show kind of sucks now. So here we go. I will go ahead and get everything set up and start underway. And we'll get to the main part of the show momentarily.
Worse, and it's not even close. The Democrats are just way better. They're just way better. They're a trillion times better than Republicans.
All right, so there's a lot I have to say in response to this. These kinds of criticisms from this guy, I honestly believe that these people usually overstate how bad Trump is, and they understate how bad Biden is. Well, you're more ideologically in agreement with Biden than you are in agreement with Trump. Well, actually, when it comes to the First Step Act, I agree with Trump on that. When it comes to pardoning Alice Johnson, I agree with Trump on that. When it comes to TPP, Trump's against it, Biden's for it. I agree with Trump on that. I agree more with Trump on North Korea than I agree with Biden. I would need to be convinced that Biden would fight for at least one or two of my top 5 issues. Medicare for all, free college, living wage, ending the wars, and UBI. The people who say Trump is a fascist and they think he's like, basically, we can't survive another 4 years of America with him. Yes. The country will survive 4 years with Trump. The country will survive 4 years with Joe Biden. Again, I think they understate how bad Biden is. Why? On so many core issues, he's against us. Me, at least. I can't speak for this guy. Joe Biden pushed for NAFTA. He repeatedly pushed for TPP. He's a supporter of the Iraq War. On all the pivotal issues of his time, he was wrong. So stop overstating how bad Trump is. The country's still going to exist in 4 years. And understating how bad Biden is. Because it's annoying. I just don't agree with the people who are like, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, the country's not going to exist in 4 years. You're hyperbolic and you're ridiculous.
Oh! You got knocked the fuck out, man!
Okay. Now that's the Kyle Kulinski I miss. The 2020 Kyle Kulinski. The Kyle Kulinski that used to talk about Julian Assange, who doesn't talk about Julian Assange anymore. The Kyle Kulinski that used to talk about the Ministry of Truth, the dangers of the something like the Disinformation Governance Board. I never heard him talking about it. I know where he stands on it. I mean, for real. But the fact that you're just not talking about it sends me a signal. And yes, I do believe the Republicans are worse than the Democrats, but I do not think that the Democrats are a trillion times better than the Republicans. Yeah, you'd be correct if you mean it strictly in harm's reductionist sort of way. you'd be correct. But the Democratic Party is not a trillion times better. In fact, if anything, they're just as bad as the Republicans. Policy-wise, if you look at the 1990s, what Bill Hillary Clinton did, they Reaganized the Democratic Party. Sure, Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kulinski founded the Justice Democrats to try to do the hostile takeover of the Democrats. And, and I was supportive of that venture as an independent during that time. I was like, give it a shot, let's see. And it looked like there was something meaningful that was happening for a few years. But just like Craig Passagiardula and Fiorella Isabel says on the Combo Couch, you don't come in there to change the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party will ultimately end up changing you. And the Democratic Party is largely America's second party. Don't ever let it be, don't let anybody convince you that the Democratic Party is any semblance of a left party, a center-left party. You might have been able to say that in the 1980s and certainly in the 1970s, you might have been able to say that. Can't say that since Bill and Hillary Clinton took the damn party over and are still in control of it. What they are today is basically the 1980s Republican Party with Ronald Reagan's more moderate side in control. There are 1970s Rockefeller Republicans in a 1980s Republican Party. That's what the Democratic Party is and has been since the 1990s. And I would never, ever support another Democrat again. I would never vote for a Republican. I want to make that clear. There's nothing. Why would I vote for a Republican? I mean, all you ever hear from them is, culture war bullshit, the religious right. And people say, well, they walked away from neoconservatism. Well, maybe Donald Trump and some parts of the Trump wing has, but it's still largely neoconservative party when it comes to China. A lot of them are correct on Russia, Ukraine, but they ruined it by wanting to rattle their sabers with China. And if you go and piss off China, you're still going to piss off Russia. How smart is that? So, and then of course, when was the last time you heard the Republican Party make anything that sounded like it was pro-union? Never. So, I won't say a trillion times better. Yeah. Harm reduction is probably the best thing you're going to get out of the Democrats. And that's even debatable. I saw the talk where they went, Crystal and Kyle were battling it out with Breonna Joy Gray over that. And what she has in common with Jimmy Dore, referring to Breonna Joy Gray, which is like why I think that they kind of pick on her somewhat. So a lot of corporate Democrats and some of the gatekeepers in independent media is that they look at her as an accelerationist. And that would be a fair accusation. And would I be considered an accelerationist at this point? Absolutely. The Democratic Party is not going to do anything for you. They're not going to do anything. And Republicans are not going to do anything for you either. So, there's no reason to give them. I'm not ever going to vote for anybody in the two-party system, because to contribute to the two-party system is to contribute to the problem. Oh, but Willie, all that's going to do is just going to get the Republicans elected. Not necessarily, because there are people on the other side that have this debate. You don't think that the Republicans browbeat some people who are tempted to vote for the Libertarians or vote for the Constitution Party, which is probably worse than the Republicans in many ways? They're having the same debate. They're not as loud about it, but I know they do have that debate. They were bitching about it in the 1990s with Ross Perot's Reform Party. Oh, he ruined it for us. George Bush would have been reelected in 1992 if Ross Perot didn't run, and Bob Dole would have been elected as president if Ross Perot didn't run. And I really do believe that Pat Buchanan was sent in there into the Reform Party in 2000 to destroy the Reform Party from within. They could have been taken over by Jesse Ventura wing. I could support a Reform Party under the leadership of someone like Jesse Ventura. I don't agree with him on everything, but Jesse Ventura, obviously, you know, he's been corrected on a lot of stuff. So, but okay, I'm just ranting on. So let's go ahead and do the second Turncoat Don video. It's important. I do play a lot of Turncoat Don tonight, and if you're not following him on Twitter or on YouTube, you should. So this is the second one, and this is with Kyle's wife, Crystal, and you'll see a crystal ball to pass, and what she had to say versus the crystal ball today. Ryan Grimjob is in this video, by the way, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this here. Come on. Spongy computer. I'm sorry, but what my computer's doing, folks.
I think the only thing that Cornell West, Dr. West, who I love, admire, respect, whose politics I almost wholly and completely share, I think effectively the only thing that his campaign will accomplish is, number one, helping to reelect Donald Trump, and number two, hurting the left.
I will never allow myself to be put in a situation where my only two real presidential choices are basically shoot me or stab me. You're not going to tell me or anyone else that we now have to vote for that person. It's so clear now that the whole vote blue no matter who line is a total con job designed to quash any dissent so that they can fully shove any neoliberal corporatist nonsense down our throats, whether it's Jamie Dimon or trashing Medicare for all, or standard issue warmongering foreign policy. We're supposed to just accept it all because at least it's not Donald.
I'm sorry, I'm having issues here.
Responsibility is placed wholly on the voters to suck it up and vote Joe. I'm not buying it. Trashing Medicare for all or standard issue warmongering foreign policy. We're supposed to just accept it all because at least it's not Donald Trump. The
having a little bit of issues. I might be my Time Warner Spectrum. Sorry. Oh gosh, come on. I think that's what it is. My cable's a little bit sluggish right now. Come on. Let's get it back to the beginning, folks. I'm sorry. I'm going somewhere with this. Well, we know that Ryan Grimjob's gentlemanly enough to sit in for Crystal Ball. And Ryan Grimjob, I like it when Ryan Grimjob does this, you know, sits in. And my computer is freezing up right now. So anyway, let me go ahead and say hello to everyone on the chat line here while the computer tries.
I think the only thing that Cornell West, Dr. West, who I love, admire, respect, whose politics I almost wholly and completely share, I think effectively the only thing that his campaign will accomplish is, number one, helping to reelect Donald Trump, and number two, hurting the left.
I will never allow myself to be put in a situation where my only two real presidential choices are basically shoot me or stab me. You're not going to tell me or anyone else that we now have to vote for that person. It's so clear now that the whole vote blue no matter who line is a total con job designed to quash any dissent so that they can fully shove any neoliberal corporatist nonsense down our throats, whether it's Jamie Dimon or trashing Medicare for all, or standard issue warmongering foreign policy. We're supposed to just accept it all because at least it's not Donald Trump. The responsibility is placed wholly on the voters to suck it up and vote Joe. I'm not buying it. because the policies and the critical importance of centering the working class isn't just some branding exercise or cosplay for me. I actually care about it. I'm willing to fight for it. The moment that we all say, don't worry, Joe, we're all going to back you up, is the moment that the establishment sees they can do whatever they want to us and sell out the working class for all eternity, and we're just going to take it. Think about this. Why do these freaking never-Trumpers and conservative Democrats have so much power? It's because they're constantly threatening to vote for the other team. We have to bend over backwards to keep them from wandering. But the left, nah, they can spit in their face and they've still got to show up. Because Mitt Romney or Donald Trump or Josh Hawley or whoever is just too bad to contemplate the alternative. And by the way, if the corporatists lose again anyway, after we all suck it up and vote Joe, they're still going to blame us. Well, I'm, for one, not in the mood to play along. Go ahead and try to win without this movement, because most people aren't interested in voting for candidates who treat them like crap and view them with utter contempt.
And that's how you deal with a Ryan Grim job, not figuratively, not literally, but figuratively speaking. That's how you deal with a Ryan Grim job mindset. I mean, they've been taking it. It's like Ryan Grim, it's like Ryan Grim just stepped inside their bodies and took it over or something like that. You can almost wonder, would they support force the vote today with the mindset that they've just been recently having. So anyway, I'm a big fan. I play a lot of Turncoat Don. Can't get enough of Turncoat Don. I had no idea who Turncoat Don is, but in real life. But the thing is that he makes fun of shit liberty, which should always be made fun of mercilessly. So anyway, he did one on Jimmy Dore. As this is not necessarily this is his reaction to Jimmy Dore's reaction to his debate with Cornell West. And again, I want to make it clear that I think that both Cornell West and Jimmy Dore had some valid points. I think they both could have been a little more understanding toward each other too, at the same time. And I would like to play the Turncoat Don video take on it, because you have to see how the shit libs from the outside project into things. And I get lectured by some people. They don't like me using the term shit lib. I will use the term shit lib. It is the most accurate term to describe the people that don't get it and should get it. People who should be on our side, who basically either take a cowardly approach or sometimes ends up taking a soft right-leaning position because they think that's the only way to go and defeat the far right. And sometimes they target the wrong people and call them the far right, i.e. Jimmy Dore, gray zone, people of that nature, people like that. Shoe on head gets called right wing. And Cornel West is now being called right wing. Gonna get up from, and Bernie Sanders, with all his faults. There are still normie Democrats that says he ruined it for us. We didn't get the first female president because of Hillary, because of Bernie Sanders. We didn't get the first female president in 2016 because Hillary Clinton was the wrong person for the job. Not because she was a female. It was because Hillary Clinton's policies were right wing. People were tired of the same old neoliberalism and the same old neoconservatism. This is why the Republicans ended up with Donald Trump. They were tired of the same old Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, John McCain way of doing shit, and they went with Donald Trump. Now, here's the thing. they like his combativeness. But I think there's still a lot of Trump supporters that do not like his policies per se. They just like that he triggered the libs, and but they would rather have a more conventional, policy-driven Republican like a George W. Bush type. And I would say that someone like Ron DeSantis, don't write off Ron DeSantis. The primary's just starting. We don't know if Donald Trump is going to be in prison. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to pull, the Republicans going to pull a Bernie and pull a Tulsi on their own candidate, referring to Donald Trump. We don't know. And I mean, don't write off the Florida fascist. He's dangerous, and and he might be temporarily wounded from that first debate, but we don't know what's going to happen. It's still too far early to tell about things. But I'm going to play Jimmy Dore, and then I'll go and share my take. All right, let's do it. And hopefully we won't have tech issues this time. But you see, my computer would shrink up for some reason. It didn't used to do that. Here we go.
I want to have to do that interview. I really thought about canceling it. There's no upside for me to do that interview. There's no.
Okay.
No upside. The only upside was that maybe I could convince Cornel West to have a more coherent message that reaches across class lines, like Bernie Sanders' campaign was able to do. In 31 out of the 99 counties in Iowa, 31 of those voted for Barack Obama twice. 31 of those then voted for Donald Trump. So does that not tell you something and about how you got to organize these people? And so that's all I'm trying to do. And I think the bigger problem with Cornel West's message is that he can't stop saying that Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is a fascist, and we have to be afraid of fascism. If he stopped doing that, his campaign would get a lot more traction. That's the bigger issue I was trying to impress upon him. The smaller issue was the one when he talks about identity politics. Because if he didn't talk about LGBTQ, trans, all that stuff, then he would have more of a focus on the things that separate him and differentiate him from the Democratic Party. Everybody knows Cornel West supports LGBTQ, trans. Everybody knows that. Just like everybody.
Well, first of all, I want to talk about an important point. There was a lot of shitty people that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. I've always said that the worst people you can find in the political landscape in the United States were the never Trumpers of 2016 that like a lot of his right-wing policies once it was enacted, and they ended up enthusiastically supporting him, saying, well, he was really our guy all along. Those are the worst people around. They're just, we're talking about, the Ben Shapiro types. They didn't trust him. They actually some never Trumpers actually even thought that Trump was too liberal. I remember I had a coworker just like that in 2016. He voted libertarian because Donald Trump's liberal pass, his single payer support for single payer healthcare, things, his opposition to the Iraq War, because this guy was like pro Iraq War. That his position on abortion, because he was at one time pro-choice, referring to Donald Trump. He has some moderately liberal political positions that he embraced. And then he kind of did a 180 on all those issues when he started running for president in 2016. Remember that he was friends with Hillary Clinton. Always remember that. I'm going to stress that very strongly. And I really do believe that Donald Trump was urged to run for president by the Clintons. And people say, well, it proves that you were wrong all along, weren't you, Willie? No, I still make my stance on that, because it backfired. There's a whole lot of things that the Clintons have done that a lot of people don't properly blame on them. Birtherism. Remember when Barack Obama was called a secret Kenyan-born Muslim trying to destroy Western civilization? It wasn't invented by a bunch of Tea Party redneck buffoons that are still hung up on 1993 Rush Limbaugh talking points. No. Oh, they adopted it once they heard it. It was planted in their head, and they were like, well, he is a Kenyan-born Muslim trying to destroy Western civilization. Well, it was planted by no other than Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was the one that invented that conspiracy theory, just like she invented Russiagate. Russiagate was bullshit. The birtherism was bullshit. And yeah, I don't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome like a lot of shitlibs do, but fuck Donald Trump for circulating that conspiracy theory a decade ago about the birth certificate of Barack Obama. Yeah, Barack Obama sucked as president, but he was born in Hawaii. And, he's not a secret Muslim like people claim he is. Actually, if anything, when it comes to religion, Barack Obama and Donald Trump has a whole lot in common. Barack Obama, he ended up joining the United Church of Christ, which is a liberal mainline Protestant denomination that goes back to the days of the Pilgrims. One of my friends come on the show quite a bit, Dwight Welsh. He's a minister for the UCC, United Church of Christ. And that's Barack Obama. Donald Trump is a Presbyterian. Both of them are neither of them are not Presbyterian, Dutch Reform. Donald Trump is Dutch Reform, and Barack Obama is United Church of Christ. Neither Trump nor Obama are particularly religious. Wouldn't be surprised if they're atheists. I don't care if they're atheists. I don't care if they're Christian. Don't care what they believe in. I care about whatever policies that they have. So there's that. About this whole fascism thing. Well, Trump is a fascist. And then some people saying, well, Biden's a fascist. Fascism is bipartisan. You don't even, and it's not even, here's the thing about fascism. It's not always a racist ideology. It's not particularly pro-tolerance. They would not be on the forefront of racial equality, but it's a whole different animal from, let's say, National Socialism that Hitler espoused. What Mussolini, his variation of it. It was still a bigoted ideology, a nationalist ideology, an authoritarian ideology, but it wasn't anything to the level of what Hitler believed. Still evil. But there are governments today that kind of practice what Mussolini practiced, perhaps on a lighter level. Or wannabes like Jair Bolsonaro, the previous president of Brazil. He wanted to turn Brazil into a fascist state or something that would resemble Chile under Augusto Pinochet, another fascist. Fascists like Franco of Spain, fascists like Salazar of Portugal. Now, regard Salazar of Portugal. Now, Choosy Carnations, Choosy Heretics chooses Carnation Revolution now. Who comes here, he will know what I'm talking about. Salazar was the premier. And I'm going back to the Jimmy Dore Cornel West thing. I just need to say this. Salazar, he was fascist. It cracked down on trade unions, cracked down on socialists, cracked down on the communists, cracked down on the left. He saved Jews during World War II. He wasn't particularly racist. He had no problem with the Portuguese population intermarrying with people in the colonies in Africa. So Portugal, there's a lot of people in Portugal that it's a racially diverse country, more racially diverse than what people would think it is. And he didn't really have a deep-rooted problem with it. But he was still a right-wing asshole in all other respects. So what I'm basically saying is that Biden and Trump, if they embrace fascism, or Democrats and Republicans, they're embracing a fascism. It's a bipartisan fascism. They may have some details on where they disagree with each other on some culture war questions, but they want to control. Remember, we had a Patriot Act. We had a Department of Homeland Security since 2001, and each president had done everything they could to encroach on our freedoms, Democrat and Republican alike. The Green Party says enough of that bullshit.
Like everybody knew Bernie did. And so that was the point of that. But again, the bigger issue, and the Revolutionary Blackout Network had tried to impress upon this on Cornell as well. And so did Jill Stein's vice presidential candidate, Ajama Baraka.
Yeah.
He said that the Democrats are not the lesser of two evil. The Democrats are fascists, just like the Republicans, and they work for the same people. So that's the bigger message. So that's my bigger message. And then I think we got into the weeds over identity politics and white supremacy. And so I don't know what people think white people hear when they say white supremacy, but it's not what they think they hear. It's divisive. It sounds like you're calling white people racist. That's what white people think when they hear that. I don't know what they mean by it, because the Democrats call everything white that they don't like white supremacist, right? So, for instance,
and there's some truth to that. Republican disagreeing with Democrats on policy issues like taxes. I have heard some Democrats say, "Well, you're white supremacist," and that's stupid to sit there. Even if the Republican wanted to be honest and say, no, we favor tax cuts for the wealthy because we think that the wealthy is better than the poor. That is fairly race neutral. Yep. I mean, is a racist more likely to support that particular policy than a non-racist? Yeah. But that does not make you per se a racist if you disagree on a stupid policy issue like taxes, whether we should have progressive taxes or not, whether we should have universal health care or not, or what have you. Those are, that's not racist. What would make somebody a racist on the right side of the spectrum would be things like, they mentioned this on Due Dissonance the other day. Cracking down on activists that are protesting against Cop City down in Atlanta, but at the same time making heroes out of the January 6th insurrectionists. We're talking about the right. You can't have it both ways. And Russell said it best. You can have it both ways. The people on the right who is like, oh, they're picking on the insurrectionists unfairly, are the same people who wants to crack skulls against activists down in Cop City. You can't have it both ways, because it is kind of the same fight. Now, I don't like the people who are the insurrectionists. I think that I don't think it's like the most horrible thing that's ever happened. It's nothing. It's not like 9/11. It's not the federal building in Oklahoma, the federal building in 1995. It's not anything like that. It was a bunch of silly rednecks that got all uptight and had a sore loser mentality, and they stormed the Capitol. I think a lot of people got their emotions all worked up that day, and they should have nothing more than maybe a slap on the wrist, a little misdemeanor fine. Don't call them domestic terrorists. And some of these motherfuckers will hate my guts, by the way, just for having a different opinion. They'll take my basic politics and look at me and with disgust and hatred. Some of them will probably want to see me eliminated. I have to edit my words because of YouTube. But sometimes the Democrats will take an innocuous issue and call their opponents white supremacists. But Republicans are no different. You favor what? Universal health care. They say, well, what are you? You're a Nazi. You're a communist. You're this. You're that. I mean, you're every projection you can imagine. They'll even QAnon, make a QAnon-like accusation about you. That's, nobody knows how to be civil or be adults.
If you said that the virus came from the lab, you were called a white supremacist. if you said that natural immunity was better than was real, how about that? Just natural immunity to COVID was real. You were called a white supremacist. So now anything the Democrats don't like, they call a white supremacist. And so it just sounds like a Democratic message. So that was my point. And
and here's the thing. The Democrats, when they do this whole white supremacy thing, they're not innocent. And I'm not going with the partisan Republican mindset. Well, the Democrats are the party of the KKK. And most of those people who would lean toward the KKK today are more likely to vote Republican. Doesn't mean that every Republican is a Klansman. It just means that if you're a Klansman, you're more likely to vote Republican. And there's this thing called the Southern Strategy, and Republicans harped upon it, took advantage of it, and took a lot of angry Dixiecrats, especially down in the South, and a lot of them, yesterday's Dixiecrats became today's Republican Party. Nobody could sit there and tell me otherwise. And when you see things, I grew up, I was my first election in 1988, the Willie Horton's ad. Can't tell me that wasn't racist. Even Lee Atwater, who helped create that ad, admitted that was kind of racist. That they were exploiting racial themes with that ad. Or the ad when Jesse Helms was running against Harvey Gantt in 1990, and the ad with the affirmative action paper, the application being torn apart and balled up and put in a trash can by some white hands, as if there is actual reverse discrimination taking place, and there was a lot of people that bought into that propaganda, and they ended up voting for Jesse Helms anyway in 1990. And Jesse Helms is one of the worst people I used to hang my head in shame knowing that Jesse Helms was my senator in this state.
And it seemed like Cornel West wraps everything, every message he ends with white supremacy. I heard him end with male supremacy.
Yeah.
Well, you have to understand, Jimmy, you'll have to understand that Cornel West comes from the civil rights era, and that's where that's coming from. And he is largely right on those issues. And I know that you support him on those issues too. I'm not going to be one of these shit libs that are trying to sit there and take every little word to take out of context of what you're saying there, because that's what they like to do to you. They do this to the entire left. Take one little word here and there. But you look at everybody. You look at the broader Democratic Party. What did they do? They gave us a crime bill in 1994 that ended up putting a lot of African Americans behind bars for the same crimes committed by white folks. For the same kind of crimes. Extended the federal death penalty to 50 crimes. All this sort of thing. But to hear it from the Republicans, the Democrats are still too soft on crime. Everything I've ever seen from the Democrats, in spite of maybe some virtue signaling, maybe in the last few years toward symbolically tipping your hat in favor of the agenda of Black Lives Matter. But they'll sit there and say, well, there are streets, there are cities in America that don't have any cops. And that's bullshit. Defund the police doesn't mean get rid of your cops. It means reform law enforcement. But on the other side, on this blue-red team sort of thing for a moment, the red team certainly don't believe in reforms. They want to go and beef up the police state and everything, and have the Pentagon give law enforcement goodies, to make them look like they're about ready to fight in Afghanistan or to fight in Iraq or something like that, or in Ukraine if things keep going the way they're going. So, on Russian soil, things keep going the way they're going. So, this is the mentality we're dealing with when we deal with the duopoly.
So, and as we've discovered over the past months, that all this kind of talk, this DEI stuff, diversity, equity and inclusion, that's all coming from the top down. All this trans and LGBTQ talking, that's coming from the top down. It's not coming from the grassroots. This is coming from the top down.
And in that regard, and I make it clear that I am in full support, 100% support of LGBTQ rights, 100% support. But there has been a change in this country that it used to be, people used to go out of their way to say, oh, I'm not for gay rights. I'm not for gay rights. And now they're going out of their way to say, hey, I'm for gay rights. I'm for gay rights, which I'm glad that they're for gay rights. And they're for gay rights. And I'm not making fun. I'm glad of this. I've been for same-sex marriage and equality across the board long before it became cool among other liberals. Long before it has been. So I've been pretty damn consistent about this. But I would say that when Jimmy Dore, and I know that Jimmy Dore is pro LGBTQ. Some people will be like, Jimmy Dore's homophobic. I never heard him say anything homophobic. I disagree with what he had to say about women's in sports, because I don't know if that makes him transphobic, but I disagree with him on that. And I think I think that he, it is a disagreement, and I think he would change in that issue eventually. But the thing is that this is how they divide on the top. And it's not just pro LGBTQ. You still got people on the top. They're still exploiting anti-LGBTQ thing. What do you think the QAnon thing is about? And you have members of Congress, and you have high-profile Republicans in the media and around and TV preachers accusing anybody that disagrees with them of what QAnon is. I have to go and edit myself and censor myself because I don't want to get in trouble. But we know what QAnon is, and we know what they're saying about people that, we know what their people are saying, and they're always casting aspersions about groomers and all of that. That's not really there. It's not there, but they're out there to make it out like they're all just trying to groom your little children, and that's not the case. That's not the case. And people like Matt Welsh, let me just say, I would hate to look into his browser history. Lord knows what probably gets him off.
Because the Democrats have nothing else to run on. They have nothing else to talk about. Yeah. So that they talk about LGBTQ, and then they bastardize the idea of white supremacy, and then they just throw it against anything they don't like. So now,
yeah, I remember when I tell people that the death penalty is racist, and I've had Democrats tell me how full of shit I was as viciously as Republicans. So I do know what he's talking about there.
Oh, it's lost all meaning. So that was my point. My point isn't that black activists shouldn't be talking about white supremacy and connecting it to class. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when you talk about that in the context of a presidential campaign, you end up sounding just like the Democrats, just like he did for most of that interview when he wanted to argue with me that Trump is the greater evil and the Democrats are the lesser of evil. That was his message when he came on my show. Yeah. Was that the Democrats were the lesser of two evils, and that Trump is a greater evil that we all have to fear because it's fascism. And then when I pointed out to him that, the Black Agenda report, black radicals are the ones who have said that the Democrats are not the lesser of two evil. Radical activists, not Jimmy Dore. They're the ones who have said that the Democrats are not the lesser of two evil, and the Democrats are fascists. So when I said that to Cornel West, he then implied that I was a hidden Trump supporter.
Well, let me go and say this. Part of fascism and its ideology is this frenzy to silence your opposition. And anybody who knows where I stand, I am a free speech absolutist, and that includes political speech that offends me. It's easy to be for speech we're all for. There's nothing controversial. Let's say, for example, I like I'll use a pizza scenario, New York pizza versus Chicago pizza. Because I know some people who are very passionate on that issue, and I'm going to do a little comedy thing on this, a little cute analogy. Those who are like New York style pizza is the best thing there is, and Chicago pizza is okay. Okay, the people who support Chicago pizza style pizza are not going to be like, how dare you, I'm going to shut you down for besmirching Chicago pizza, or vice versa. Those who love Chicago pizza, and people who love New York pizza, having these disagreements. I'm sure that that 99.9999% of the people that love Chicago pizza and New York pizza are not going to sit there and silence the other on that issue. They're going to go and kind of joke on each other about it. And I'm okay with New York pizza. I'm okay with Chicago pizza. But what I'm saying, I'm always okay with pizza. I mean, I'm always ready for pizza. But point I'm trying to make is, this is, it's a speech that we're all for. Those who love New York pizza, hey, we love New York pizza. Hey, there's no controversy in that. We support the free speech of those who love New York pizza because I love New York pizza, or those on the Chicago pizza. Those who love Chicago pizza, hey, that's great. I love Chicago pizza because everybody here loves Chicago pizza. There's no controversy in that. The controversy is when you want to go and you're so offended by the other side that you want to shut them up. Like, for example, I'll use the culture war. 20 years ago, when the Dixie Chicks said some mean things about George W. Bush, what did the right wing do? They wanted to go and boycott the Dixie Chicks, and they economically ruined them. Well, a decade later, the CEO of Chick-fil-A said, I don't know about gay people getting married. LGBTQ activists and their straight allies wanted to go boycott Chick-fil-A. The people that were boycotting Dixie Chicks accused the LGBTQ and the progressive community of being for censorship. But it isn't censorship when the Dixie Chicks were, when the right wing were boycotting the Dixie Chicks. I'm sure Sean Hannity's Rush Limbaugh said, no, it's okay when we do it, but when the liberals do it, it is wrong. And even now, we take a song like Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town versus Dylan Mulvaney's selling a Bud Ice. Okay, I don't drink Bud Ice because it's Budweiser. Nothing to do with Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney wasn't bothering anybody with selling, advertising for Bud Ice. Well, what did the right wing wanted to do? We're going to go and we're going to teach them a lesson. Bud Ice, you better not be promoting Dylan Mulvaney. But, if the liberals, the shit-libs and the liberals said, I don't know about this, try that in a small town. It's threatening violence against people who believe differently. Oh, there you liberals go again, trying to silence us. We ain't going to be silenced. And they try to have it both ways. I try to tell them, look, if you believe in free speech for one, you're going to believe in free speech for the other. And that's what it comes down to. And if you can't accept that, like, for example, I hear a lot of right-wingers say, all you liberals want to do is just to silence us. We ain't going to be silenced. I'm for my free speech. But then, when they're protesting or whatever, oh, they're burning the flag. They need to be arrested. They need to be arrested and put in jail for 10 years, fined $10,000. And if I had it my way, well, it'll be a hell of a lot worse than that as a punishment. That's dumb. And you're like, aren't you being for censorship? Oh no, it's okay when we do it. It's always okay when we do it. You know, when Governor DeSantis is banning books in Florida. Oh, it's okay when Governor DeSantis is banning books. But I found out today that Gavin Newsom, who I'm no fan of, he signed legislation in California that would ban censorship of books in California. I don't like Gavin Newsom, but on that alone, and there's one other issue, but on that alone makes him better than Ron DeSantis, and I would never vote for either one of them. But I'm just giving y'all an example of what I mean by this. So we're going to let Jimmy continue. All right. As soon as my computer lets.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because that's exactly what they say to him. So just whenever you get to the left of somebody, that seems to be their flex, right? I was afraid he was going to call me a Putin puppet next for being against the Ukraine war.
I know what that's like lately. Ukraine, a country more right-wing than Russia. I'm not for Russia going into the Ukraine, but I'm not going to sit there and pretend that the Ukraine is this beleaguered, victimized liberal democracy being picked on by big old bad Russia, when all that the United States and NATO did was to break promises. We're talking about prior to Putin, when Yeltsin was in power after Gorbachev, Boris Yeltsin, a centrist figure, where Russia was definitely more democratic than it is now, but economically not as being exploited by the West. What happened? A lot of promises were being broken. And then, objectively, you see what happened. And there is an ethnic cleansing going on in the Donbass region against Russian-born, ethnic Russians in the Ukraine. The Russian Orthodox Church is banned. Political parties, left-wing political parties, are banned in the Ukraine. The Interior Ministry in the Ukraine is connected with, I hope I'm not butchering the name, Myroveres, which is the infamous list, shall I say, that's going to target people who dares disagree with the war. Noam Chomsky, Scott Ritter, Henry Kissinger, even, not to mention, people like Glenn Greenwald, Tulsi Gabbard, Rand Paul, Jeremy Corbyn, what's the name? The girl that said, "How dare you? How dare you?" Yeah, the little environmentalist girl. I forgot her name. Greta Thunberg. That's her name. Gerhard Schroeder. We're talking about people who are, who are mainstream figures in other countries, being targeted. Not just the gray zone or not just Jimmy Dore or what have you, but we're talking about mainstream political figures around the world, being targeted as well by this specialized list. We're talking about a country that has neo-Nazis that we're indirectly funding. And if you dare say this, you're a Putin puppet, or you're supporting white supremacy. They even said that. I'm going to state this again. Ukraine is a hell of a lot whiter than Russia. It's more homogeneous. It is, and they want to keep it that way. LGBTQ people are treated badly in the Ukraine, worse than it is in Russia. Again, it's an Eastern European thing. It's wrong when it's practiced in Eastern Europe, homophobia. It's wrong when it's practiced in the Middle East. It's wrong when it's practiced in Latin America. And it's wrong if it's practiced in Nebraska. Okay? I'm not a cultural relativist. It's wrong wherever it's practiced. But to call somebody a Putin puppet for whatever bullshit reasons, it's ridiculous. And I think that people are slowly realizing what a crock of shit this proxy war is.
Because that's what they're doing to him. And then they're also calling him a Trump supporter. They're doing that to him. They're saying he's helping Trump. That's what. So to have him use that back against me was, in the nicest way possible, completely disgusting.
On that one, I will agree. That's definitely because again, you see the background where Donald Trump and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are obviously hanging out. Well, Jimmy Dore said it best several years ago when George W. Bush was being rehabilitated. And notice that Democrats rehabilitate past Republican presidents, but you're hard pressed to see Republicans rehabilitate past Democrats. I just wanted to say that. But he said this, and it's true. Liberals hated Ralph Nader because he gave us George W. Bush, supposedly. Now that the liberals have rehabilitated George W. Bush, they still hate Ralph Nader. I deal with this mindset a whole lot. It's infuriating. It really, honest to God, is infuriating.
And undermines his own case. So he didn't have something to say back. I was echoing what black radical activists said about the Democratic Party, and he didn't want to hear it. And he didn't know what to say, and his flex was to try to smear me. That's what he did. Just like he's being smeared. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And it's because he didn't have an answer for it. And it's because he's really campaigning for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party when he says those things.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't realize it, I just don't believe he doesn't realize that. There's no way he does not. Everybody's tried to tell him that. So that's the bigger issues. That is the big.
Well, we have a two-party system, and it is locked in. It is extremely locked in. And this is why this discussion is taking place. If we had ranked choice voting, this wouldn't be an issue. If we gotten rid of the Electoral College, this wouldn't be an issue. Voting for the Democrats shifts the country for the right. If we could say that voting Green Party gives the advantage to Republicans, then voting for the Democrats also encourages the Republicans to go for the right. Because look what Democrats have done. They have taken Republican ideas, and they may have softened it, but they give it to us anyway. I mean, Donald Trump talked about this wall that he wanted to build. Well, Democrats are building this fucking wall right now. And, and pretty soon, you're going to probably hear Democrats talking about invading Mexico if this keeps on, because they tend to follow the Republicans. Michael Moore said that CNN, for example, is the second fiddler to Fox News. He said this 20 years ago. I still say that's the case today. And so, NAFTA was passed under Bill Clinton. This was a Ronald Reagan, George Bush wet dream. A welfare reform was passed under Bill Clinton. Again, a Ronald Reagan, George Bush wet dream. Glass-Steagall was abolished. A wet dream of the Republicans. Signed away and gotten rid of by Bill Clinton, which also allowed the housing bubble and crash to take place in 2007, and nothing was being done about it. What changes with Joe Biden? Joe Biden said there will be no fundamental changes once he's elected. He kept that promise. We have no $15 an hour minimum wage. We have, we don't have it. We don't even have a public option. And I'm gonna tell y'all, Medicare for all. I'm okay with Medicare for all. It doesn't go far enough. You have to look to Cuba. You have to look to Great Britain when it comes to what we need to do about healthcare. Great Britain and Cuba are the two countries the United States needs to look to when it comes to how you do healthcare. You need to have socialized medicine. You need to have socialized medicine. Doesn't mean that you embrace everything about Great Britain. Doesn't mean you embrace everything about Cuba. But let's say this. Whatever problems that persist in Cuba, which has been caused by the United States, certain things they've done correctly. Healthcare, education, a job for all, housing, those things never to be taken away from the accomplishment in Cuba. Doesn't mean that I agree with every aspect of their government. There are things that they do in Great Britain that I don't like. I mean, the royal family, really, and they're highly cited for surveillance society. I remember when I was in London in 2006, it was like cameras everywhere. I mean, we got cameras here now, but I mean, this sort of thing. And we need to go and to take on and try to democratize this deep state that we're in. And Max Blumenthal talked about this the other day on Useful Idiots with Matt Taibbi and Katie Halper with regard to sometimes the center is sometimes can be more dangerous than the far right, which tends to be cartoonish. I still think that the far right cartoonishness is still very dangerous too. I've known this since I recognized myself as a leftist back in the late 80s.
Bigger issue. The smaller issue is the white supremacy. But I just want to let him know, nobody knows what he's talking about when he says it. And if you have to get a dictionary to explain people what you mean by it, you've already lost the argument.
Yeah.
And again, people keep thinking that somehow I'm attacking I'm trying to make Cornel West a better candidate so more people will vote for him. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to make him a better candidate. So, and I think I saw this, and I think this typifies it pretty well. It says, what has the focus on race and white supremacy managed to secure in terms of improving material conditions for poor and working class Black people over the past 40 years? White supremacy is an ideology. Class structure is not. Do notice how one can talk about white supremacy all day long because the Democrats want you to. One is encouraged to do it, in fact. Democrats, corporate and progressive, talk about it. So does the CIA, the FBI, and the Pentagon. So do all the major corporations and financial institutions. I saw a thing from Bank of America yesterday talking about white supremacy. Oh. Bank of America, the biggest oppressor of Black people.
Well, you take a look at Black History Month, and I celebrate Black History Month. And the thing about Black History Month is that you never hear any mention of Bear Rustin or Cornel West, or you never hear any mention about Fred Hampton, who was more radical than Bear Rustin, A. Philip Randolph, I'm sorry, or Fred Hampton, who was more radical than A. Philip Randolph or Bear Rustin. And all of them focus on class-based politics. They did focus on racial equality. Of course, you got to have it. You got to have it to have an egalitarian society. It's part of what I bargained for when I became a socialist. That part of this is to have this egalitarian society where people, no matter what color, what your ethnicity, what your religious or non-religious views are, what your sexual orientation is, your political outlook, that everybody is entitled to a living wage job, medical care, paid vacation times, a pension system where you can enjoy a high quality life. And basically, for all the authoritarian social conservatives, is like, we need to go back to 1950s values and be like Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best and whatever else, Ozzie and Harriet. Well, you know what? When you watch those shows, even though they didn't stress it on those shows, in the 1950s, a third of the American workforce belonged to a labor union. And that third of the workforce labor union was so strong that it scared the shit out of many other companies. They don't want a union coming around, so they better go and pay these workers a little bit more and give them some benefits to make sure the union doesn't come around. I don't care what it takes to increase the standard of living, but that union movement helped. when Reagan came along, the unions disappeared. And now unions are less than 6% of the workforce in the private sector. And when a right winger comes up to you and say, well, I'll agree, but let's go and get rid of the public sector unions, they're your enemy, because they'll sit there and they want to just destroy the union movement even further. Because if you destroy the 5 or 6% in the public sector, you're just going to have a 6% of the private sector that's unionized. It's going to be easier to get rid of. You know, the unions are almost banned in this country. They have done all they could to ban. And you want to go, and the conservatives, social conservatives, you want that quality life of the 1950s back? You better get used to equality for the LGBTQ. You better get used to a multiracial, multi-ethnic society and diversity, because you know, that's not going to go away. But if you want a high standard of living, you better get behind a goddamn union, or you're going to see economic decline continue. You may not want it for those other folks, but when you don't want it for those other folks, you also don't want it for yourselves. The right wing are so stupid when they vote against their economic interests. It's amazing.
So do all the major corporations and financial institutions. So does the mainstream media. Why? Because racial parity politics doesn't bother capitalism one bit. Calling out white supremacy has no effect on class structure, but it does make the DEI industry lots of money. Adolf Reed Jr. analysis of poverty and the contemporary black politics is correct. Everything has changed except the way it's talked about. Fixating on racial disparities distracts from the pervasive influence of class, and it ends up legitimizing economic inequality. So let me take a pause right here, because I have to get a video I want to show you, and we'll be right back. Theo Vaughn, and he grew up poor like I did. I grew up really poor. I grew up drinking powdered milk. I didn't even drink real milk till I was in.
I drank powdered milk when I was growing up too. We weren't poor, but for some reason, mom and dad drank powdered milk. I think it was because my dad was in the Navy, and that's where they got the powdered milk from. And it just old habits, you know.
7th grade. I didn't even have my own. Anyway, doesn't matter. I had to go. I went to free dentists. They didn't use Novocaine when they drilled my cavities. That's real. So Theo had a similar upbringing, and he's going to talk about what he hears when people talk like that. Here's what he said.
So I grew up in my neighborhood. We didn't have a lot of diversity in my neighborhood. Diversity is always people's talking about it. And we didn't have it. You know, my neighborhood was poor black, poor white. That was our neighborhood, you know. So I didn't feel any white privilege. I know some people had it, man. You know, I knew some motherfuckers with sweaters. But I was 2 tank tops in the winter, okay? And I just didn't feel it, you know? I wish I'd have had some white privilege, dude. Sign me up. But I didn't have it, man. It was just poor black kids, poor white kids, man. And my poor black friends would always be like, man, look what you did to us. And I'm like, dude, do you think I would do all that shit to y'all and then move right next door, bro? Now, we gonna split this plum or not, dog? We're in this together, man.
And that's the message. We're in this together. That's what I was trying to impress upon Cornel West. And I'm not saying at all that black activists shouldn't talk about white supremacy or connected to class. That's all. I'm saying that in the context of a presidential campaign, maybe I'm incorrect, but Chris Hedges educated me on Fred Hampton a little bit, and he told me that he reached out the way that he reached out to the Young Patriot organization, which was a racist organization. He organized with them. He wanted against the man. Together, they had common interests. Let's go against the man. And so that's all I was encouraging him to do. And I think the bigger issue.
Yeah, Jimmy, they're going to accuse you of red brown alliance talk with that by doing that. I don't necessarily think that. I don't think that at all, because you know, I have run across, and maybe it's a North Carolina thing. I have run across a lot of people on the right. You just can't convince them of that. They rather wallow in their hatred and their partisan hackery than to fight for their economic interests. And, you know, and that's how it is. There are people who you would never be able to reach.
Issue is that when he wraps everything in LGBTQ, trans, and white supremacy, that he's playing into the hands of the Democratic Party. Just like when he says that Trump is a greater evil, he's playing.
And that's true. But also remember how the Republican Party, and you know this, but you also need to stress how the Republican parties do this. They go and they stress on race politics and LGBTQ from their perspective. Oh, they're grooming your children. They're teaching critical race theory, that sort of thing. And critical race theory, I heard somebody tell me critical race theory was Marxist. I mean, because of the way it sounded, critical race theory. Oh, that must be some stuffy professor, Marxist professor in some out of touch university. And what it is they're teaching you about the actual history of the United States, things that they're not discussed in the classrooms, and they don't teach you about the ugly side of the U.S., which every country has an ugly side. I mean, again, I talk about Norway. Norway's probably one of the kindest societies in the world today. I mean, look at these Viking motherfuckers. 1,500 years ago, what have you. I mean, so they got a checkered past too. No society, there's no country that's evolved or ever been created that were created by nice people per se. But the point I'm trying to make is that that every country has a spotty past, and countries, they try to erase their spotty past. That their country's always a good guy, right or wrong, they're always a good guy, or what have you. And that's not the case. But they're sitting there banning critical race theory, and trying to ban certain curriculums in the school, like they're doing down in Florida. But they're going to go around and teach you garbage from Prager University, like, oh, well, African Americans had it great under slavery. That's the kind of shit that they will teach you. If I do have a criticism of Jimmy Dore, I wish he would address that particular niche too that exists on the right. I know he's an online left show. He's speaking to an online left audience about this, but anybody who's right leaning, they need to know about the garbage that's on their side, and the stuff that's inconsistent and stupid that exists on the right side too, and shake them of that bad habit.
Playing into the hands of the Democrats. He's actually campaigning for them when he does that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying what he is saying is incorrect about LGBTQ or white supremacy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's playing into the Democrats' game when he does that, and that's a misstep to do it that way. And apparently he doesn't have any advisors, so I've told it right to him. And again, I would have loved to have done that in private. They don't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it in public. They don't want to hear anything. So that's all I have to say about that for the moment, for the time being. I'm sure this will come up more, and I'm glad it spurred a lot of conversations, and I'm glad it has, because we need to have this conversation, and we need to understand that, and we have to stop letting the establishment and the BlackRock, which is where this stuff comes from, divide us in identity politics. It wants us to think of ourselves as separate. It doesn't want us to think as a collective. And that's where all this is coming from right now. And that's why the Democrats and Bank of America have embraced talking about white supremacy.
Yeah.
Not because they care about it and are going to do anything about it. but because they know it's a way to manipulate us and keep us separate. Okay, and again, if it's just stunning to me how few people can tell the difference between someone trying to encourage someone to be better because they support their platform and someone criticizing someone and trying to knock them down. I'm not trying to knock down Cornel West one bit. I'm trying to help Cornel West have a more coherent strategy that actually can do damage to the establishment and wield power. That's what I'm trying to do. It's obvious that's what I'm trying to do. And the people who don't see that I think are just that bad faith actors. Just like Cornel West bad faith attacked me, just the way he's been bad faith attacked. It's crazy.
Nothing offended me more than seeing Bernie Sanders and AOC just knee-jerkingly getting behind Joe Biden. They didn't even have the decency to get behind Marianne Williamson or Robert Kennedy, which I would have been a little more sympathetic to them had they had. And I got some problems with Marianne Williamson. I got some problems with Robert Kennedy Jr. I got some problems with them other than the fact that they're running inside the Democratic Party, which you can see what's happening to them. They're being Bernie Sanders in 2024. They're being Tulsi Gabbard in 2024, just as Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard were. We know what were done to them during the 2020 campaign.
That the left can't get their game together, especially after 8 years of Barack Obama doing right-wing policies, and now after 3 years of Joe Biden being an unbelievable fascist, crushing workers' unions.
Never forget the rail strike that was busted last year, and those motherfuckers didn't get their sick leave. And we got to go and embrace Bidenism, Biden economics. What's his name? Harry Simpson, the little moron that decided to go and attack Breonna Joy Gray online. He can fuck off.
Anyway, I don't have much more time to talk about this today, so I'll just leave it.
Even Kurt said, I don't even know what that means. And I think it's okay when you're talking about white supremacy for us to have conversations about that. And I'm willing to sit down with RBN and Nico House and be educated on what they think it means today. But if you have to bring that dictionary, you need elevator pitches over here. This is a presidential campaign. Mm-hmm. And the one area I think
actually no shit libs that accused RBN and accused Nico House of all crazy things you can accuse both of them of being. They have accused them of being white supremacists. I'm like, no, not at all. Not at all. Doesn't mean, no, it's totally ridiculous. Well, because Nico House is friends with some conservatives, that makes him a white supremacist. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Think that you shouldn't have had to apologize, but you did, was when Cornel West kept on saying, I can think for myself. You're supposed to have a presidential campaign that's supposed to have a plan in place to go after people across party lines. And whether you like the People's Party or not, since he's moved away and went to the Green Party completely, it's like he's staying in his own little echo chamber of progressives and leftists that you're not going to win. You're not being serious about running a presidential campaign here.
They're not trying to expand his reach.
It's terrible. He's got zero populist message.
I mean, the Green
zero.
The Green Parties, they russiagated themselves.
Yeah,
they russiagated themselves. The Green Party.
That is true. And I voted for Howie Hawkins in 2020. Was he still better than Joe Biden? Maybe, but I am deeply disgusted that Howie Hawkins bought into Russiagate. Deeply disgusted that Howie Hawkins, smeared Tulsi Gabbard and said she was a Russian asset. I am deeply offended that he has a hawkish policy on Russia-Ukraine war that's as bad as any neocon out there, for what I could understand. I mean, and it just disgust to me that I voted for somebody like this. I mean, we never met. We know the same people because I used to be in the same other organization that he's still a member of, knowing the same people. And I used to really enjoy some of the work he's done in the past, and that still can't be taken away from him. But wow, when I was told about that, I was like deeply just beside myself, referring to Howie Hawkins. But you know, anyway, I mean, I have no idea who Cornel West is choosing for vice president. You know, so I have my favorites, but I'm not going to be public about it here. If you really want to know, you're just going to have to dig into Twitter. But anyway, we'll let Jimmy and Pasta continue.
So we know the Green Party's infiltrated, and the messaging is just horrible out of the Green Party. Absolutely horrible. And now Cornel West has picked up their horrible.
Well, it depends what you mean by infiltrated. Are they a lot of disgruntled Democrats looking for maybe a better Democratic Party within the Green Party? If you mean that might be true. Just as that would be true of the Libertarians, people who are like disgruntled Republicans trying to find a better Republican Party through them, if that's what you're saying. And with the Libertarians, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are people on the left that thinks the Libertarians is an absolute total right-wing organization and movement. It isn't. I have problems with libertarian economics, but you know, and there are individuals who are libertarians that I definitely take issues with. But I met the libertarians I have met. Most libertarians are pretty decent folks that I just have some economic issues with. But they're okay on the socially progressive issues of the day.
Horrible messaging.
Yeah.
So,
and where was his mind at the very end? I just want to say this too as well. When he said he agreed, he wanted to have a truth commission, all that stuff, but then to go and kick yourself right in the dick.
So we agreed,
when you're doing that stuff.
So we agreed that when he said they're going to have a truth and reconciliation commission for what happened during COVID, I was going like this, yes, and then he immediately goes, but that's not important to me, and it shouldn't be important to you. That's the biggest. And it's like, well, you just had a victory, and you snatched victory. You snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory. That's what he just did there. So then immediately he said it's not important to him. It's not important, the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history, because that's what the CARES Act was. And they did it under the guise of helping people for COVID because of lockdowns which were never needed, which were a nefarious, evil plot to crush small businesses, 41% of black businesses. That's what that was. And then they did the CARES Act because they were going to help those. The CARES Act was the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history that just devastated black-owned businesses. And Cornel West said, not a big deal. And he made it look like it was some kind of fetish of mine or something. I'm not kidding. The most depressing 45 minutes of my life. And I'm still upset. I'm still rattled by it. Honest to God, I'm rattled by it. I'm super rattled. And especially that he did to me what the bad faith attackers do to him. That was just the lowest thing that has happened to me in doing this show. So anyway, we got to move on. Let's go to a card.
Okay. And to finish it off with that psychotic laughter of Hillary Clinton was the icing on the cake. That's Turncoat Don with the little, he's kind of making fun of the shit lib response to every finite point made, you know, whether you're Jimmy Dore, whether you're whomever, RBN or you're, Nico House, or whether you're Glenn Greenwald or Harlan's Media or the Combo Couch or the Gray Zone or Katie Halper or Breonna Joy Gray, and maybe even Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball in their better days. Certainly not today. Certainly not today. But anyway, so I got the information down. You can look him up on YouTube and Twitter. Sorry, Twitter. Turncoat Don. Please do follow him on those platforms. I highly recommend. I really do. And let me go back to the chat line here, and I will talk to everybody here on the chat line, or as many people as I can. We have a busy chat line right now. So let's see. I said, oh, I think I know who you are, Kim. How are you doing? So anyway, the problem with bleach has steep Kyle's brain. I saw that around him. Hi, gamer. How are you doing today? Oh, I guess I'll see you on the secret show in a little while. Let's see. Yeah, no beauty in the boomer tonight. Shanda will be back this Wednesday. Yeah, Shanda will be on my show. We've been talking, and she's going to be on my show probably in about a week or two. I need to check my calendar, but she's agreed to become a guest on my show. So you got that to look forward to. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, thank you, gamer. I appreciate that. I'm glad Willie is doing a show. Yeah, I try to do a show, okay, whenever I can. So I do this show here, the Willie Bragg Show, a couple of times a week, and I try to do a show on Saturday, every Saturday. There's a good reason and a valid excuse if y'all don't see me here, and I do a show every Friday evening from 5 to 7 with Jimmy Sunderland, who co-hosts the Secret Show with Warren, who's going to be on in about less than 90 minutes. And I try to get at least one interview a week with somebody. And that's what I've been doing for quite a while. So I'm going to try to have a regular schedule for my show where I can do like maybe a 30-minute show every day down the road. I just need to do what I can. So let's see here. All right. And I saw Warren on the chat line. Warren, I saw you somewhere. I just can't quite see you on the chat line here. But I did see you for a second. And I wanted, Brian, Bryson Arcana, corporations are people. Yeah, even some conservatives are regretting that Citizens United decision from a decade ago. Philip Capehart, hey, how are you doing today? Jimmy Dore would say that the Democratic Party is a graveyard for progressives. I've heard him say that. I've heard Craig Pastor-Jardula and Fiorella Isabel say the same thing. Let's see. Morning campers. There you are, Warren. How are you? And everybody, do follow Extra Booyah, and be sure to do that. The Secret Show will be on at midnight, so tonight. And let's see, Around the World with D and Friends. And I will be on Around the World with D and Friends this coming Tuesday. So everyone, please drop on by her show and do follow Around the World with D and Friends. Right. All right. Let's take a look through here. And I'm going to scroll real quick. Yes, Bryson says Perot would have been great. Considering Bill Clinton versus George Bush, or Bill Clinton versus Bob Dole, yeah, looking back, Ross Perot would have been a better alternative. He was, let's see. All right, I'm looking through here. I'm going to try to cover everybody. Yeah, absolutely, Philip. Hillary Clinton was a terrible candidate. Hey, Lloyd, how are you doing today? Lloyd Trackwell. He is minimizing the dangers of Trump. Trump is a dictator that would get rid of the Constitution. I think that's pretty much the mindset of most politicians these days. Max Blumenthal and Matt Taibbi had a discussion about that, and I think that I've always said, beware of the authoritarian left, the authoritarian right, but also be aware of the authoritarian center. And the authoritarian center is calling all the shots right now. Garland Nixon has the best take so far on the West Door thing. I totally agree. I had the opportunity to see him do a speech twice, one at the Assange rally in DC last year, and earlier this year at the Rage Against the War Machine. Let's see what we have here. Trump is a white supremacist, a guy who supports the Nazi rally. Dore is trying to correct Cornel West in that regard, was dumb and sound like he's an apologist. Super Platon, man. Trump doesn't believe in a goddamn thing that he says. He's a clown. He's a buffoon. He's an idiot. And he's, he may have a little bit of street smarts to know how to get the media to focus on him. That's about as far as I'll give him any credit for. I was bothered by the good people on both sides remark he made at Charlottesville. He definitely did not want to offend the people that helped him get into power. There's no disagreement there, but I am not so sure if he's committed to that ideology per se. But but I would never vote for the guy. So there's that. Let's see. I was looking through here. I want to make sure everybody. Let's see. I do want to state this point here. Why Dore asked questions about the trans. Willie, that is very bigoted. You have to call that. That's not a disagreement. He comes like a bigot. There's a lot of people that are not, and I don't, and this is why I defend trans rights and pretty damn loud about it. Because there's a lot of people who are not ready for this, and I have to, there was a lot of people that were not ready for gay marriage yet. People will eventually turn around on these issues. I'm not making any excuses, but some things are very new to people and all of that. I know people who are trans, and I know what they're going through. And this is why I do believe in equality, including the trans community. They are entitled to their equality. They're entitled to their right to exist. And I even go as far as say they're entitled to their rights to participate in women's sports. I'm not particularly a fan of Emma Braggland, but when she and Anna Kasparian, birthing person, were arguing about that issue, as much as I can't stand Emma Braggland, I was totally on her side on that one. So there's that. So let's see here. It's gaslighting to pretend that Dr. West's campaign isn't 100% focused on the working poor. And I do think that everybody has their reasons for voting. Those who are going to vote for Cornel West has their reasons for voting for Cornel West. I had my reasons for voting for Cornel West. I was going to boycott the presidential vote in 2024. And my vote for Cornel West translates into this. I want a candidate who basically support the same roughly democratic socialist or social democratic outlook that I do have. I'm a little further left economically than I was even 2 or 3 years ago. But I still kind of was, if somebody used the term social democracy at me, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not me. It most certainly is. Even a lot of people who don't call themselves that are that. But the point is that I am a social democrat who opposes capitalism, more like an old school one. And I want to see that here. That's the value system that Cornel West embraces. I remember in an interview with on C-SPAN back in the 1990s that he talked about Eugene Victor Debs, Norman Thomas, Michael Harrington, and I have my misgivings about Michael Harrington, but he does belong into that family tree when it comes to the Democratic Socialist movement here in the United States. So, and that's kind of still where I'm coming from. No one gives a shit about Nader. Barely anyone knows who the hell he is. I respect Nader. I respect him a hell of a lot more than Bernie Sanders these days. Let's see. I want to talk about that. Jimmy Dore talking about how radical Democrats are when it comes to social issues reminds me so much of how Bill Maher Democrats are weak when it comes to social issues. The difference between Jimmy Dore and Bill Maher, and there was a time I respected Bill Maher. I don't anymore. I absolutely find him disgusting these days. But Bill Maher, I mean, the only area where I will find myself agreeing with Bill Maher is on free speech absolutism. But here's a man that was a Bernie bro in 2016 that ended up, sucking Amy Klobuchar's cock. I mean, he sucks up to Ben Shapiro and now sucks up to the Hillary Clinton wing of the party. He's one of the worst people out there in shit liberty land, and that's like a well-known public figure. No, fuck Bill Maher. Let's see. Okay, let me address this point here. What you're saying, you're just a Minton Democrat or worse than the Republicans, which H.W. Bush could never have do. I'm sorry. What you're saying is you're just Minton Democrat or worse than Republicans, which H.W. Bush could have never do if it happened under Bill, but it happened under Bill Clinton. I see what you're trying to say. Things that the Democrats get pushed into doing that Republicans want to do but never could do it, somehow Democrats end up doing this. I remember a conversation I had with a right-winger once about this. It made me mad when I was in college that when a Democrat embraces a Republican idea, they're called brave and what have you. But when a Republican do it, it's horrible. And as if conservative ideas and policies correct. And I remember telling him, I have a problem when the Democrats embraces conservative positions. It's just like that whole meme of some guy with a Che Guevara t-shirt and some smug ass Republican says, "Let's go, Brandon. I guess you're trigger now, aren't you?" And the guy with a Che Guevara shirt says, I hate Joe Biden worse than you do. So I remember jokingly years ago, the church I go to, I remember my bishop and I were talking conservative. I said, it's funny that the liberals hate my guts for voting for Jill Stein. I said, I probably hate Hillary Clinton more than you and your wife. And he patted me on the back. He said, there was something I liked about you when I first met you. And he knows where my politics is. So anyway, it's just kind of funny. So I probably agree with the frustrations that JD is trying to communicate in this interview, but his trans remark made me cringe. He shouldn't have gone there. I probably would not have. It's not where I would have focused, especially the way he did it. I mean, I think he's probably trying to let some Trump people in his audience know there are Trump people. There are Republicans that do listen to Jimmy Dore, and I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to deny that fact. That part, that some liberals are correct when they say that, but they ought to be rejoicing that they're listening to a left-wing voice. If you can get a Trump supporter to refute Rush Limbaugh talking points, and even if they end up taking like Shank and Anna on the non-controversial issues where Jimmy Dore still agrees with Shank and Anna, that would be a start, in my view. That would be just a start. Let's see here. Cornell West talks to Jordan Sheridan about his Jimmy Dore discussion or clarified his positions. He is totally fighting for a class struggle. He includes white supremacy in that discussion. Well, I think that engaging in the class struggle is a way to combat white supremacy, because I think that issue, some people don't like the term class reductionism. I would argue that everybody's a class reductionist here on the left. Even if you practice a form of identitarianism, you're still a class reductionist in some capacity. You can't really be one without the other. And if you're a true leftist and class politics still dictates what you believe, unless you're in Eastern Europe or Latin America or something like that, you're going to at least be a civil libertarian. If you're not like totally woke all the way, you're going to try to be some kind of a principled libertarian, even if you have some personal 1950s conservative sensibilities. I would be guilty of that. I'm not a conservative, and I'm a very tolerant person, but I live a rather conservative life. What you say about me? I live. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm a middle-aged man, and I live. I'm obviously a white dude, half Hispanic. Whatever. This shouldn't make a difference. I'm a middle-class person that I live. I'm just a cisgender straight male, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being LGBTQ either. I'm a lukewarm Episcopalian. I just do whatever. I just live my day-to-day life. I'm as far as I'm concerned, I'm just me. But I happen to think that we need to do a lot of things in this country. We need to nationalize some major industries. We need to strengthen the labor union movement. And we need to provide medical care for every man, woman, and child in this country. We need to make sure that everybody has at least 1 month, if not 7 weeks off, paid vacation time every year, a generous pension plan for everybody who works. We need to make sure that everybody has access to housing, low-cost public housing, home ownership, low-cost housing for all, universal basic income, this sort of thing. We can do this. We can do this. Cut back on our military. We can nationalize large portions of our energy sector and use the revenues to go and provide for the people, provide for the people. For learning about modern monetary theory, we don't have to have a debt crisis. I found out. So this is the sort of thing. And I have to go very soon. Cornell's talking about what's the confines of capitalist framework and includes parts of the class struggle. West has been fighting racism for decades. He's written entire books on it. And that's what I know about Cornel West since I first started hearing of Cornel West. And I will passionately support him for president in November 2024. And believe me, I'm going to have people blaming me if the worst happens. DeSantis become president. North Carolina is a Republican state, pure and simple. My vote for a shit-lived, sellout Democrat's not going to bring us closer to making the United States economically like Norway. So if it did, I would still be a Democrat. All right, let's see. And I'm going to have to go very soon, folks. And I'm just, I'm running out of time here. Yeah, let's see. Okay. I was just talking about MMTs. Only functions because of the federal government gets loans from federal banks. Federal banks are private institutions. Well, as long as we control our own debt, and that's where we can become more protectionist again. So as long as we control our own debt, that would be extremely helpful. So and we need to. That's and we do control a lot of our own debt, but we need to do more of it. And don't let anybody diffuse you by saying we can't afford it. We can't afford it. Luscious, said Comrade Kitty. Hey, how are you doing today? All right. And I'm checking down here. I'm trying not to leave anybody out. Let's see. Okay. Let me add Warren here to this discussion. I watched the interview. Dore was being sarcastic when he asked him about trans, because he was implying West was more interested in trans issues when he was of class warfare, from what I saw. Well, I mean, Jimmy Dore is a comedian, and for some reason, political satirists do get a sad misunderstanding. And they're using a lot of irony when they do their humor and their satire, but some people don't quite get that. So let me conclude by saying thank you all for dropping by today. And I want to make some announcements. There was no Beauty and a Boomer here tonight, but I believe she'll be back. I believe she and Haas will be back in about 2 weeks, I think, or next week. Possibly next week. I don't want to go and be the cause of y'all not seeing Beauty and the Boomer next week, if they're coming back next week. Shonda says she's going to be on my show fairly soon. We're working on that. So when she gets back from her vacation, gets her new studio set up and everything, she's going to be a guest on my show. So I'm looking forward to that. Tonight at midnight, and I will going to type in the URL over here for you all. Be sure to drop by the secret extra booyah, because the secret show will be on tonight. You'll get a chance to see. Warren and Jimmy do their show as they do every Sunday morning, late Saturday night, however you want to define it. And they're a great team together. Just highly urge everybody to check out, subscribe to Extra Booyah. I believe he said his interview show going to come back fairly soon, so be sure to do that. What else I'm going to say? Every Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Bragglands. That's my show with Jimmy, and we discuss politics and discuss wherever the hell we want to discuss. So that's every Friday at 5. So Eastern Standard Time. Please do drop on by as well. Anything else that's going on? The Matrix is on Saturday night. They're still on. I think they're still on. Be sure to drop on by their channel and follow them as well. Follow Trailer Park Pundit. Follow Beauty and the Boomer. Follow Extra Booyah. Be sure to follow Jimmy's links are in the description box below. Be sure to follow her links, and be sure to follow Turncoat Don. That's what I have to say about that. So anyway, if you like what you heard, please press like and comment. Comment any ways you disagree with what I have to say. We'll have a conversation. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Be sure to subscribe to this channel here, The Willie Bragg Show, on YouTube, Twitch, on Rumble. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Facebook. Also, likewise with Bragglands. Follow Bragglands on Twitter. Follow Bragglands on YouTube and on Twitch. We will get a Rumble Bragglands soon. That is a promise. And before I go, I want y'all to take a look at this right there. This is going to happen because Republicans always get rehabilitated by Democrats. This is what's going to happen very soon. I promise this is what's going to happen. It's going to be funny when people be like, I remember Willie Bragg. He did this. He did this. He actually predicted this was going to happen, and it happened. So there you have it. All right, I'm back. So always reject corporate media because they have nothing to offer us, folks. I'm going to wish you all a good night and enjoy the theme music, the intro and outro theme by Ken Arroyo. And I'm trying to get him to come on the show. So hopefully he'll be on the show soon too. Take care. Have a great evening. Good night.